Hello, all. Welcome. It's philosophy and fighting time. It's just a little segment that we use where we take lessons from martial arts, practical psychology, and philosophy to help you guys on and off the mat. I'm Kristen DeBrucker. For those guys who do not know me, I'm a professional martial artist, and I currently reside in Charlottesville, Virginia, where I teach at Gracie Charlottesville, where I teach Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Muay Thai, and Filipino martial arts to both children and adults. So it's my pleasure to be here on a Saturday morning. It is fall, it is October, so I'm very excited to be here. So I'm here to take all of your questions today for those guys who are tuning in. But if not, I always have something prepared, and especially because I have a lot of downtime for the foreseeable, I guess until 5 more days. I'm kind of quarantined here in the basement. So I wanted to share with you guys my top 5 things that I have learned from martial arts that I kind of apply to my life. I had a lot of Zoom lessons this week where I talked to a lot of people about kind of perspective and how we take what we learned in martial arts and how we apply those to the things in our life. And I will say I'm definitely a better person because of the things that I learned on the mat and how I've applied them to my life moving forward. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the top 5 things that I personally have learned, kind of doing this since I was 9 years old. But specifically when I started doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and Muay Thai, and how challenging those were for me. And I've kind of grown from that process. So I should clarify, when I started Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu specifically, I hated it. And a lot of people don't like to hear that, but it's true. I didn't like it at all, but I stuck with it because I really wanted to fight MMA really bad. So I stuck with it. And because I hated it and I still did it anyway, I kind of learned a lot from it. So there's something I want to, so I will just say that these are the kind of the things that have stuck with me over the last however many years I've been doing this to kind of help me. The first thing is to keep in mind is enjoy the process. I think a lot of us have goals, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with goals. Goals are great. I'm a very goal-oriented person myself. But I remember after I got my black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I got super depressed because I was like, okay, I achieved this grandiose goal, this goal that I never thought I would actually get to. And I'm like, okay, now what do I do? So instead of focusing on the goal or the destination, learning to enjoy the process, the grind, okay, going in and day out, it becomes a lifestyle then. So regardless of what your goals are, whether it's weight loss or whether it's, I just want to make more money or anything that you're trying to use, is just the process. This is something I learned from getting ready for fights. The fight is always the goal, and doing well in the fight was always the goal, but you have to really embrace the grind. And if you do not embrace the grind and enjoy the process of getting better, it is going to be really hard to stick with anything in life, regardless of what that is, martial arts or otherwise. So that would be the first thing that I would say. And I tell myself that every day, actually, is enjoying the process. Because once because sometimes you have bad days and it's hard to I got to do this again and get yourself up to do it. But if you enjoy the process, it's much easier to kind of do the things maybe you don't want to do. And that's kind of what got me through jiu-jitsu all the time, even if I didn't like it. The second thing that I've definitely learned from being on the mat a lot, especially when you first start sparring, whether it's Thai or Jiu-Jitsu and you have to lose a lot, setbacks are just opportunities in disguise. And that's something that I forget it about a lot. And I had to relearn during the quarantine early this year, is seeing the opportunity to kind of reach a different audience by doing YouTube live videos. It was kind of an opportunity, but at the time it was a setback because I was so depressed. It was the longest, so it was I was off the mat from essentially March until July. And that is the longest layoff I've ever had off the mat. I've never, even when I was injured, I was always on the mat teaching. And so that was really difficult for me. So what I've learned, whether it's losing, getting tapped, or getting beat up, is every time I have a setback, you need to reframe that in your head and say, this is an opportunity. I just have to look at it that way. So the quarantine gave me opportunity to kind of really focus on my YouTube channel and reach a wider audience. And that's something that I'm very passionate about, is taking what I've learned in martial arts and making it accessible to more people, not just the students I teach in person. So that's something that you can do for yourself is anytime you have a setback in life, whether it's minor, whether it's in training, is like, okay, how is this actually an opportunity? It's kind of something that I spoke with some of my friends who are competitors is like, you don't really like the losses aren't really a bad thing. They're just an opportunity to learn. And so it's all about reframing things in your head. And that really kind of helps me kind of move forward, even when I have a bad day. I'm not saying it's not okay. Like it's not okay to have bad days. You're going to have bad days, but take some time away from it, reevaluate and be like, okay, how is this actually an opportunity for growth? And that's what I do every time. Like I used to get tapped too, especially when I first started in jiu-jitsu. It's like, okay, what did I mess up? How do I get better? So that would be the second thing that I would say is very valuable that I've learned from training that I think will apply to other aspects of your life. So the other one would be managing your expectations. That would be the third thing. I have very high standards for myself. Very high standards for myself in everything. When I first started training, I wanted to be really good at jiu-jitsu, really good in MMA, really good at Muay Thai, really good at, and if I wasn't the best at all of them, even compared to like say men, I would get really down on myself. Like, why am I not the best at all of these? Or like, why am I not leaner? Why am I not this? Why am I not that? Then I have to remember I have to manage my expectations because we only have so much time in the day. So I think people they put too much expectations on themselves for what they can accomplish in a year, but they don't see like the long-term effects of this. So like here's a great example. Like when I first started training 14 years ago, I was 200 pounds. And I remember thinking that I'll never lose the weight. Now looking back on it, looking at my body back then and my fitness level and like what I've accomplished, I didn't do it all at once. I did over a long period of time of change. So if I had managed my expectations and seen like how far I'd come from when I first started martial arts, like taking it really seriously to now, I'm not even the same person. I don't even look the same. The big joke between my old roommate is that I look younger now than I did in college. And that's just because of my lifestyle had completely changed from partying, drinking, not taking care of my body when I was in my 20s, my early 20s, to now, my lifestyle is completely different. So it's all about managing your expectations and giving yourself like little goals, little victories. So that's something else that's really helped me that I've learned from the mat because I used to get so frustrated with myself when I couldn't keep up with the jiu-jitsu guys or I couldn't keep up with the guys that did Thai or because they were all specialists. And I split my time between all these different arts. And so I had to manage my expectations that, okay, you're not a specialist, you're a generalist, and you're a lifestylist. So don't be so hard on yourself. Because if you're already hard on yourself, this just makes the process even more difficult. And there's no reason for that. So that would be the third thing that I've learned from training for a long period of time is managing my expectations. The next one is don't look at where you are, look at where you could be. And I actually learned this from teaching. So I wouldn't be in the position that I'm in today if I didn't have mentors that looked at me and helped me out when I first started training. I had an amazing group of mentors and instructors who didn't see me kind of where I was as like this kind of overweight, uncoordinated woman who just hopped on the mat when there was like no women on the mat. They saw me as more than that because they saw my dedication and that I kept coming back over and over, even after I lost or would get beat up on the mat. So I learned this also when I work with kids or when I coach in general. I don't see where you are, I see where you could be. And that's something that I wish I had done for myself because I always look at where I am and like, oh man, you're out of shape. You're not where you should be. Like, well, but I could if I put in the work. And so that's something that I have to, when I look at myself daily, being like, okay, don't worry about where you are right now. Just think about where you could be if you put in the work and you do the previous things like embracing the grind and enjoying the process and all that other stuff. So, and I tell my students, I tell my fighters this, if I see that you have good habits and you work hard and you're respectful, you're disciplined and all these other good things, you'll eventually get there. That's what's beautiful about martial arts, is that it's not about where you are, it's about where you could be. And I think that we can get a lot of value from that from everywhere we are, like any point in life. Um, so that's something that's helped me out a lot with my perspective shift, because I used to get so down on myself if I'm not in the position that I wanted to be. Like, here's a great example, for about life example. When I was 16, I used to teach Taekwondo for a living. It was like my first job. And I remember being in high school, walking from high school to my job, being like, man, wouldn't this be amazing if I could do this for a living, like for the rest of my life? And I was thinking, yeah, but that's not going to happen, because I was so focused on where I was right there. Fast forward to now, I'm in my mid 30s and I'm literally getting an opportunity to teach martial arts every day, professionally, and getting paid pretty well for it. And I couldn't be happier. So it's not where you are at that moment, it's where you could be. And I'm now exactly where I want to be, at a gym that I really love with students that I really adore. So it's all about kind of that stuff. Definitely something that I've learned the hard way on the mat, but I've now applied it to the rest of my life. And then that would be the fourth thing. The fifth thing, which I think is probably the most valuable thing I've learned from training martial arts that I've applied to my life, is, which I had to learn kind of the hard way too. Being a good person is more important than being a good fighter. Fighting is inherently selfish, especially when I was wanting to compete full time, and like that's what I wanted to do, and that was my dream. And no one's gonna. And not that it's bad to be a fighter. I admire fighters. I've helped a lot of other people fight and compete, but ultimately, as an instructor, as someone who mentors and teaches, I think that I'm not in the business of making good fighters. I'm in the business of making better people. And that martial arts is the vehicle to change someone's life, to make them better, regardless of what that is. And so I think when you reward athletes or fighters for just being great fighters and what they can do physically without knowing what's here between the ears, whether it's respect or discipline or whether they're a good person, you're devaluing, you're giving someone the power over another human being without knowing whether they're going to use it for the right reasons. So ultimately, I care more if my students are better people than they are great fighters. Okay. And that's something that I always thought, that's how I earned respect, was just by being good and like my physical domination over another human being. Especially as a woman who did this, I thought I had to like almost overcompensate for that. But then I realized that if I treat people with respect, and I really connect with people, and I'm just be really good at my craft and teaching, that's more important. And if I can reach regular people, not just fighters, that is more important than whether I'm actually just good at beating people up. So, so those are the top 5 things I would say that I've learned from the mat that I've kind of applied to my life. So first one was enjoy the process, which is very important. Second one, setbacks are just opportunities in disguise. Third, manage your expectations. And then 4, it's not where you are, it's where you could be. And then the 5th one is, it's more important to be a good person than a good fighter. So these are just things I want you guys thinking about when on your journey to being a great martial artist, but also just a good person. So now is a great opportunity for me to take questions now that I got a decent amount of people tuning in. If there are any questions, whether it's practical, like fighting questions, or if it's more mindset questions, like how we get in and do this day in and day out, or if it's, questions you guys have about post-COVID training or questions about anything, now is a great time to ask me. If there are no questions, then we'll kind of call it a day. But it's fall, which is great. It's hoodie season. I'm very excited about it. So are there any questions about self-defense or training or mindset that I can answer for anybody? If not, we will just call it a Saturday. apologize, I forgot to silence my phone. Okay, so I want to say thank you guys so much for tuning in on this Saturday. I will be trying to do this now every Saturday, a little bit of a philosophy and fighting, little like, mat chat kind of thing. If you want to support the channel, you can consider becoming a patron on Patreon, just patreon.com/Kristen DeBrucker. And that kind of helps me out a lot. Kind of, make sure I can save up for my own camera so I can start vlogging and recording more videos, things like that. And you can also follow me on Instagram, Facebook, all that good stuff. I'm also available for Zoom lessons if that is something you were interested in. And thank you guys so much for tuning in. And remember, fighting is easy, life is hard.